Hi everyone, welcome to Aberrant Behavior. It's your host, Christabel. I think it's been about 3 weeks since I recorded. The last time I recorded, I said, I'm going to make this a weekly thing and I'm going to be on here every week. That did not happen. And it got me thinking about how I need to stop doing that because life during a pandemic has been incredibly difficult. And so my mood is in constant fluctuation mode. It ebbs and flows. And some weeks I just don't have it in me to record. So I need to just let go of that capitalistic tendency to just hustle. Typically, I don't even struggle with it. So I don't struggle with a desire to hustle. I'm the queen of relaxation. But when it comes to something like this that I enjoy podcasting. I find that there comes this whole if you enjoy it so much, then you should be doing it more often. And the truth is, that's just not the way it's been shaken out. So I'm going to record when I'm able to, and hopefully, it will still get to those whom it needs to. This week, I want to talk about something I'm super excited about. And I think that's the other thing that will help make me record more often is that Janelle has agreed. Janelle is my partner, in case you don't know, my ex-wife and my current girlfriend. But she has agreed to come onto the podcast with me. I am so excited about that because honestly, it is the most insightful relationship I have. I jokingly call her my muse because the best thoughts I ever have come from having discussions with her. And literally this podcast I'm about to do is as a result of a lengthy conversation we had this morning. So let's get into it. But yeah, look out for that. I don't know. She's currently away working. So I don't know when we would do our first episode together, but you're going to see our dynamic is I can't even explain it. I hope it's able to translate onto the podcast. I hope that because sometimes when you set up microphones and stuff, it tends to stifle conversations. But my hope is that we are going to lay it all out there like we do when we're talking, regularly. And so that's something I'm looking forward to. So this week, though, I wanted to talk about relationships as my biggest teacher. I have had many relationships over the years. None has been as impactful as the relationship I have with my mom and the relationship I have with Janelle. Those two relationships have been the relationships I've grown the most in. But I also think that sometimes other relationships that we end could be, we could always learn different things about ourselves from those relationships, but we end them perhaps a little too soon because it's hard. But I don't think it's just because it's hard. I also think that we have to be ready to learn from relationships. Otherwise, all we do in relationships, or all I did in relationships, let me just talk about myself, because as always, this is my perspective from my life. So I can't speak for anyone else. But what I noticed is that in my other relationships, I just was not interested in learning shit from anybody. And I can only say this in retrospect. I did not realize it at the time, but in retrospect, I can look back and see that a lot of how I moved through that relationship was, just this is who I am. If you don't like it, too bad. you knew who I was before you got with me, and now you can't tell me nothing. And I was just the most defensive, just proud of like all my conditioning, even those that didn't serve me. I was just like, I did not care. I was going to love you the way I knew how to at my current skill level. And if it wasn't good for you, and oh well, you can always leave. So that was like just my attitude. And in addition to that, I had this attitude of just like looking at the other person's faults, or their perceived faults. It was always like this blame game, like you do this, you did that, you are this way, you're that way. And I feel like social media also like has that tendency to make people do that. Like when you look at these like memes or graphics about how the other person is narcissistic, or about how this person is toxic and that person is no good for you and that person does not respect your boundaries and just cut them loose and you deserve better. And yeah, absolutely. We deserve relationships that are respectful, loving, tender, all of that. But honestly, I have found through therapy, because therapy and social media, they're so opposed as far as like advice is concerned. Number one, therapy doesn't give me advice. Like my therapist does not give me advice per se, but like social media is so black and white in its advice given. And I just know that like it hasn't been like that for me. And as I'm navigating, as I'm having therapy over these years, I realized that many things certainly are black and white, like clearly abusive, relationships, but so much is not black and white. There's so much to be learned in the gray area, or there's so much of relationships that exist in the gray area. And so I'm thankful that I have that other perspective, because I swear, like I will have therapy this week and I'll be in like a good headspace about the things that came to light for me. And then I go on Instagram and it's like, leave now if you're experiencing, and then there will be bullet points. This, that, the other in your relationship, run the other way. They're showing you their true colors. And I'm just like, but my therapist did not say that, right? He gives context. He helps me like see it from like so many different perspectives, and like, and it's just not that black and white. And so while many people, I feel like, benefit from the advice that relationships should be easy, it's just never resonated with me. It's just because none of my relationships have been easy. None of them. Not with my mother, not with my ex-partners, not with my current partner. And so certainly I should have, or should, that's the other word, like my therapist always says, should we really use should? But I perhaps benefited from moving away from those relationships. But the relationships that has had the biggest love that I've ever experienced hasn't always been easy. In fact, I can almost say has mostly not been easy. And again, most notably is my relationship with my mother and my relationship with my current partner. It's love that I have and feel from both those people is the kind of love that is mind-blowing. And I'm talking about love not in a romantic sense, but love that means that, hey, if I need to take 4 months off work, I know my partner's got me. If I need a kidney, I know my mom or my partner's got me. Love that is all encompassing. Love that is like deeply spiritual. Love that is transcendent. And again, those two relationships have been the hardest relationships I've ever had. So, I mean, hey, if the whole love should be easy thing resonates with you, that's fine. And I feel like many people don't talk about this stuff because it's like, it feels taboo, right? It feels like if our relationships are hard, we dare not admit that because people are going to be like, that's totally abusive. Or, yeah, you should totally leave. And so, like, yeah, people just don't talk about how hard some of their greatest loves have been. At least that's what I think. So ultimately, I don't think that every difficult relationship is a relationship we should not seek to repair or grow from. Or so, like, talking about like my relationship with my mom. Many people, and I think that's the difference between like Western individualistic way of navigating relationships and navigating relationships. There's a market difference there, right? Like in the West, I find that many times, especially if we've had parents that were abusive physically or emotional towards us, there seems to be more ease when making the decision to completely separate from them. In African cultures, typically, this is not the case. Yeah, it's there are good and bad sides to it. So I'm not going to this is not a judgment on anyone or whatever choice you feel like you had to make to protect yourself or to it's not a judgment at all. I'm just saying that for me, even though I suffered like horrible physical and emotional abuse from my mother, cutting her off was just not an option that I was looking to pursue. It just wasn't. Even when I started therapy, one of the fears I had was that if I talked about the abuse I suffered at her hands, my therapist would encourage me to hate her or keep her far away from my life or, things like that. Because honestly, yes, I suffered from her or suffered at her hands, and I'm still working on healing those things and navigating that. But there was no doubt in my mind that I wanted a relationship with my mom. Obviously I had my boundaries around that and learning to have boundaries around her. So yes, I wanted a relationship with her, but I knew that my boundary would be if she continued to cause me harm. So yeah, I can work through the harm that she's caused me in the past. But I knew that as I was working to heal, I had to establish certain boundaries with her, and it didn't go over easy. It was slow starting. It was hard for both of us because we would fall into our old patterns often. But as the weeks went on in therapy, I was able to have patience. I was able to have support, because I knew what my goal was. So in that, in line with that goal, my therapist was able to support me when she and I had difficult moments, or we regressed, or things weren't going as I wanted them to, or she wasn't respecting my boundaries and all this stuff. And just gradually over the years, little by little, by very, very, very little, our relationship progressively got better. But there are so many moments there that I literally could have thrown in the towel and been like, this woman is detrimental to my mental health and I want nothing to do with her. And I think that's a valid choice for many people, but it wasn't for me. I didn't want it to be, I guess is really what it was. Like, so that's where I think like intention comes in, or how, intention. If we are intent, not forcibly so, but like if we have as a general intent that we want to maintain a relationship with a person, and that person is willing to put in the work, even if it's gradual and there seems to be recurrent regressions, it could work, you know? You could heal that. And that was true for me. She was willing to put in the work, even if she was super hesitant and super resistant. And I was like constantly triggered, constantly, like, I'm not even exaggerating, constantly triggered, but I stuck it out. She stuck it out. We stuck it out. And, we're in such a magnificent place. I love her so much and she loves me so much. And she has like coming out with, you know, like as we're healing our relationships, as we were healing our relationship, I came out. So that was super hard to navigate because she's an African Jehovah's Witness mom who has deep homophobic ideologies. And so, so that was so hard to navigate. Even till today, there will be things that come up, but overall, she's supportive of me. She's supportive of my relationship. I would say that she is supportive of my friendship, in that, like, she's still who she is. She's still a Jehovah's Witness who believes that homosexuality is a sin. So she can't allow herself to like get deeply involved in my relationship. But if I came to her with like troubles, she advises me with impartiality. And so that's I couldn't ask for anything else, you know. And again, this might not work for everyone. Someone may say, if my mom does not completely accept me and my queerness, it's an absolute no-go. And I encourage you to make the decision that is right for you. But that wasn't the right decision for me. She can be as homophobic as she wants in her heart, but she knows that there is a very, very, very strong boundary that exists, that she could never express that to me. She could never express homophobia in my vicinity. And so she strictly adheres to that. And so here we are, able to have a relationship. I'm able to take my partner to Ghana on a yearly basis. She hosts us. She loves us. And that's sufficient for me. So in addition to that, when I think about my relationship with Janelle, for instance, when we first started dating 6 years ago, it was a hot mess. I was a hot mess for so many reasons. When we first got together, I had just left a few months before. I had just gone through a pretty difficult divorce, a pretty just like antagonistic divorce after 4 years of a deeply emotionally and physically abusive marriage. So I was in a fight or fight mode all the time. It was just about me versus you. Yeah, I knew I loved her. Yes, absolutely. I would do anything for her. But when it came to like my conditioning and just the way I was raised to interact in relationships, I grew up in a household where we yelled. we screamed, we threw things, we hit. So that is literally all I knew how to do. That was what I knew how to do. So for the first year, it was like absolute chaos between Janelle and I. And when as we came to the end of that first year, it became clear to me that it was untenable. That if I wanted to have fulfilling relationships, I would have to do some work on changing my conditioning as far as I'm able to, do some work on understanding who I am, understanding where my patterns came in, where the things I had learned as a defense mechanism in childhood were no longer serving me in adulthood. And so I went to therapy because while I would say to her, this is who I am, if you don't like it, it is what it is, I was deeply ashamed of my behavior. I was deeply ashamed of how I was treating this person whom I claimed to love. And so, yeah, I went to therapy because of the love I had for her, not necessarily because I had this immense love for myself and wanted to be better. That's not how it started. I went to therapy because of the love I had for her and the desire to treat her better. That's what took me to therapy. And so 5 years later, here I am, a much different person. And 6 years into our relationship, the lessons never stop. While there are things I wish that I could change in our history, I'm ashamed that they happened, and I wish they hadn't happened ever, because that trauma, the effect of that trauma is still lingering. I can honestly say that she has been the truest reflection of myself than I've ever had. It's so hard to see yourself. It's much easier to see someone else, like I said before, and tell them what they need to work on. But shifting from just like focusing on what the other person needs to work on and focusing on myself has made it so that I had to get true. Like I had to get like real honest about what I saw, accepting what I saw, but also looking for ways to gain new skills to help me navigate life and my relationships with more ease. And I just had to, our culture has taught us to throw in the towel early on if it's hard, but especially if it's hard in a specific way or for a prolonged period of time or in a recurrent way, that shows us automatically that it wasn't meant to be. And while I'm sure, as I said, that sentiment could be, so while there's history that I wish we just never had, it's not something to be proud of. I'm not out here saying, yeah, this was really hard and I'm so proud of it. And without the pain, I wouldn't know love. Nah, there's certain things that I genuinely like just regret because the residual effects from undergoing that trauma is still present. And in addition to dealing with like everything else, we have to deal with the true and the truth that those traumatic things that happened in our relationship, the effect of it is still lingering. And so like literally we've been married. There's been infidelities. We've divorced. There's been trust that has been lost. There's still a constant conversation between us as to whether we would make it. If perhaps the hurt of the past is too much to overcome, if perhaps we can't regain the trust. So yeah, that stuff is still there. And so we work, we go to therapy, we fight, we cry, We threaten to leave monthly, it feels like, because it just feels so hard sometimes. But you know what? Above all, we love. We love so deeply. We have learned so many skills, so nothing feels abusive anymore. Nothing feels harmful anymore. It's just navigating the pain that has been caused. But we've grown so much in the way we communicate, in the way we set boundaries, in the way we respond to our boundaries not being respected, or even the way we respond to our boundaries being respected. All these things come with its own set of challenges. But again, I have not regretted for one moment us staying together or us loving each other. I've never doubted that. I've never regretted that. I have, again, apart from the love that I have for my mom, I've just never loved as deeply as I do her. And I've never felt love as deeply as the love I feel from her. So I just kind of want to talk about this stuff, how relationships are different for everyone and how we shouldn't, I don't like should, but how we perhaps could not judge ourselves if our relationships look different than what is portrayed on Instagram or elsewhere. Because again, I will say this to no end, Instagram therapy and real life therapy are so different. So different. At least in my experience, it has more nuance. It includes more context. It's super obviously individualized because that makes a huge difference. It is based on your current circumstance. And 5 years later, I swear, my therapist roots for us so much, but not in a inappropriate way. Just from a perspective of you guys are doing so well with communication. Our couples because I have a therapist. We have a couples therapist, and she has a personal therapist. So our couples therapist is the same way. Nuance, individuality, context, they know this. So I can, I'm sure maybe someone would listen to this podcast and be all judgy about it, right? Like, yeah, you probably should have left that relationship. It shouldn't be that hard. But these individuals, these professionals that we engage, they know the context. They know our individual experiences, and they know the love and the work and the progress that is present. And based on that, they are working with us, and they're rooting for us, and they're pleased with our progress just as we are. Doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that we're not going to break up. Doesn't mean that, we're going to spend the rest of our lives together, but we have an intention to spend our life together. We have a determination, and we're putting in the work to make that happen. And most of all, we have the love. I don't know if it's most of all, because our couples therapy would always say, our couples therapist would always say, love is not enough. So absolutely, love is not enough. But love coupled with work, intention, and just determination and progress and mutual respect has us at a place where, we're still navigating difficulties, but we love being together, and we are creating the life very, very slowly, very, very gradually. It feels like sometimes we're creating the life we want, a life of more peace and calm and kindness and compassion and respect and boundaries and, self-determination and autonomy and, just all this stuff. And we're doing it every single week. And incredibly proud of us, even if it looks a certain way to other people. So yeah, as you can imagine, like, this is a much bigger conversation, and I can't wait to have it on an ongoing basis now that I've gotten her to like agree to come on, because we're so different people. We always say that we're the same different people, because I talk and talk and talk and talk and talk, and she does not talk. Does not talk. But like, yeah, I think that having this conversation frankly, openly, like literally just last week, she called me out on my tendency to use my tears and my pain as a weapon to emotionally manipulate her. And at first I wanted to be hella defensive and talk about how that's not true at all, that absolutely I'm in pain and I'm crying because I'm in pain, and she's just heartless and lacks empathy. And whew. Then I took a deep breath and I said, you know what? You're right. You are right. I do this. So to see, oh my God, it was super hard, because like when I examined myself and came to the acceptance that I do that, that's one thing, but to openly like acknowledge that to someone else who you just don't want them to see you that way, because like, yeah, I'm in pain, but maybe I exaggerate, or like magnify the pain and the tears to get love and acceptance, because that's what I did when I was a young girl. When I didn't feel loved or accepted, I invoked these methodologies. So yeah, I do regress back into that Christabel, into that little Christabel, and do that. And for her, who is super sensitive to being controlled or manipulated in any way, it triggers her. And when she's triggered, she relies on her conditioning, and which often seems to me to be cold and distanced and removed and, unempathetic. And so like to actually openly admit that for the first time to her, and this is after 6 years of being in a relationship, was freeing, because like now I have let go of the shame and the blame that I placed on her. And now we can just get to work on this new revelation about this thing that I do, right? I can just get to work and work on it in a truly meaningful way, with the guidance of my therapist. So that's the way we continue to evolve, and we have conversations all the time. And I just think that it will be super dope to have these conversations on the podcast, and just like let's talk, right? Let's as much as possible eliminate shame in the way we navigate life, because relationships are fucking hard, man. Like, if you consider the fact that even like your mother, whom you came out of their womb or their vagina, you guys probably, for those of you who have a difficult relationship with your mom, if that relationship can be as hard as it oftentimes is, imagine like relationships with just like these random total strangers we fall in love with and decide to cohabitate with. For me, it makes sense that those relationships are equally hard. I know that for some people, that's not the case at all. But if we're looking at statistics, and more than 50% of marriages end in divorces, and most relationships end, and there are very few happy and easeful relationships, I'm not alone, and to say that your relationship is not the most easeful can feel very shameful, but I'm not ashamed of it. I'm only ashamed of it when it comes to comparing, what the realities of my relationship is to what the ideal I'm presented. That's the only time the shame comes in. The shame is never there when I'm in therapy, be it with my personal therapist or with our couples therapist. The shame is not there. I don't know. It's just not there. So I just want to bring those conversations, like have more of those conversations and be like, hey, there's nuance, there's context, there are individual considerations to be made. And of course, one size doesn't fit all. There's so much opinions out there, including mine. And I'm not ever going to say, listen to mine or whatever. And I still really think that the best way to do this is with an individual therapist, to navigate difficulties we have in relationships, is to do that with a therapist, to coach somebody who has personal insight into your individual circumstances and the context and the nuance there. So this conversation that I'm hoping to embark on is not prescriptive. It's not directive. It's just literally me and us sharing our experience, and it may resonate. I hope it resonates with some people, where you can be like, okay, let me pursue how, let me let go of the shame. Let me see how I can, if I have access to therapy, learn how to navigate relationships better, because I do think it's a skill that we need to acquire, being able to communicate, being able to set boundaries, being able to, respect and just navigate relationships. I think it's a skill. Many of us just don't have it intrinsically. And many of us have been socialized in a way that we just never saw examples of it. So we just are kind of shooting in the dark and reading self-help books and trying to figure it out. And I just feel really empathetic for the Christabel that was doing that before I had access to therapy, because shit's hard. And even with therapy, it's still hard, but I think it's worthwhile if it's the person or the persons that you have an intention and a desire to do life together with. I think it's, even in its hardness, there's so much beauty to be found there. And so that's all I have for this week. Until next time. I was going to say next week, but we know that I become a liar when I do that. So until next time, I want to just have more of these conversations. Okay, bye.